Greetings, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us today as we continue on our journey of the Webex admin portal. Today, we're going to focus more on the analytics and troubleshooting portion inside the control hub to figure out what's happening in our environment, what it looks like, and how we can look to see if there are issues occurring. So with that, we will go ahead and dive into our demo environment here. All right, and as we mentioned before, we've gone through some of these settings here. The one we're going to focus on today is analytics. And as we go through these might take a few minutes to actually pull up. What we're going to focus on here is starting over with messaging, moving over to calling, then wrapping up with meetings as for the analytics side. Each one of these have tabs that we will dive into and kind of go more in depth in the information that they're providing to us. We'll let this spin up and then we'll start looking at it, see what options are being displayed, and then move on to the other ones. All right, with the analytics pulling up on side the messaging side, it tells us how many active users, what our daily active users are, total messages being sent, what our users look like per day, who is our most active users listed inside there, messages being sent, active spaces. And what I did want to show is that you go across these tiles if you wanted to know more about what's actually being represented in these little blocks. Just click on the eye and it will tell you what's happening inside this chart. And once you read it, just flip it back over and we get back to the information. The other cool item is if you wanted to actually select a few days, just click inside the tile, grab your lasso, and then kind of just pick a few days that were interesting to you or something you wanted to zoom in on. And we've got, and then we'll just focus on the messages sent, most active users, spaces during that time. Let's say you did everything you were looking for on those, and then just if you want to exit out, click up here on the X and we go back to the normal view of what's happening in our environment. We on the top right, we have daily, weekly, or monthly views into the environment for our messaging on this side. And so that's what the overview on this is. We're going to move over to calling. Like I said, we'll take a few moments here just to switch between the screens. It's just trying to pull the data, and this is a demo environment that doesn't always get used, so it's got to populate that information first to be able to present it. But we'll notice the exact same thing on messaging. We'll have some tiles that are going to be presented inside here. The only difference is we do have an extra tab that we can look at for quality. But first, we'll go through and look at the analytics side on the calling. This lets us know the number of calls based on those days, the call minutes. We have call details that are being listed inside here. Again, we get to do the same that we've done on the messaging side. We can click in, lasso a few days, and then I did want to point out that you can actually select more than just a few. So you just switch over. Looks like that locked up on me. Let me re-switch. So we pick a few days. We pick these, and that way you can actually have more than what's being shown on that side. We'll exit out. Let's go in here. Let's focus in on those. We'll exit out. This one, more of just a brief information about what's happening. The quality is then when we can look to see what's happening with the number of meetings that we have, if there's any calls above threshold. And these thresholds are placed down here on the bottom. Right now I don't have any calls that are showing that there were quality issues, but if we change the criteria, if we move that down maybe to 2.3, we didn't lose anything. All right, let's say we change the latency down to 100 and let's say 162, then we can start seeing a few items that are popping up inside here that are showing items that where maybe the latency was higher than what we wanted to. And then you can zoom in, use your lasso, select a few days, and it will pull just for those days what we're looking at there. Exit back out. It'll give us the whole view again. And like I mentioned on the other one, we can pick between daily, weekly, and monthly as we look at what's the analytics that are happening inside on the calling side. To wrap up on the analytics, we're going to move to meetings. Meetings will have the same thing. There'll be tiles that are representative for what's happening on the meeting side, but you'll notice up here on the top is a metrics and classic. Metrics is much more the analytics, what's happening, the ability to kind of see where things might have stood out. And then classic is going to actually be like the details of that call, what happened, who was involved, and we can pull all that from the classic side. All right, once this gets pulled up here, we can see what our engagement is, so the number of meetings that we had, how are people joining, looks like most of them come on the Webex here, the location, the number of participants, the activity, and you can change that by daily, weekly, or monthly. And again, as we mentioned, you can use your lasso, pick a few options that are there for you. When you're done, just clear it back out. What we'll look at here is the quality of our meetings. We can see what the average join time is based off location. So very important if you have more than one geo that you have to kind of focus on. We can see the number of participants that are joining those meetings. We can see what the VoIP quality is. And so in this environment, it is only VoIP. They don't have any PSTN in here to kind of look at. So everything's just by VoIP. That's why there's no other information. But it lets you you see one that was above the threshold. You can then select that, zoom in on those three, and then it'll change the criteria of what we're looking at based off those. You can either hit the X there to go back out and clear it up there on the top. Now we'll switch over to the classic view, and the classic is where we can actually get what happened with that call, the call details. And so we're going to move over to meeting usage. I'm just going to run a report for, it looks like from the 17th to 23rd, and then we're just going to pick one from this one here. It's got 38, it lasted 28 minutes. So we'll click this. And I'm just going to grab the email. You can either grab the meeting information if you wanted to, but I'm just going to grab their email. So then I can actually go to the troubleshooting aspect of this. And we're going to come in here and we'll type in or paste the username. Oh, I have the space out there in front. And then these are all the meetings that this user has been a part of. Let's go ahead and pick the 57 minutes and 23 users. Let's click on this to dive into it. And this will give us into the diagnostic portion of it. So we can look at the audio, the video, sharing, and details for these. But the first thing you'll notice here is all the users that joined this meeting. And then as you hover over it, it tells us what they joined on. There's a Mac, there's Windows, and you can scroll through to kind of see what we're looking at for the connectivity. Now, these bars, if you're curious, over on the right side is the chart legend to where we have if this was a good signal, if it was fair, if it was poor, if there was a change for the indication of who's hosting, who's sharing. And then based off the join time, you can tell in the circles here if everything was good, if it was fair, if it was poor. You can either hover on that, you can click on the user if you want to go to it, or you can click on the line to dive into the diagnostics of that. When you look into the actual individual user, we can see what the audio quality was for those, what the video quality was, and then it also tells us what the CPU or memory was. So we can find out if it was a network issue that was causing problems within that meeting, or if it was network issues based off the latency or packet loss. Now, something to also point out, just click back here on participants. If you hit the back button up here, it'll take you all the way back to the classic page. So just click back on participants. Let's click on the video and see how the health score was that. Once again, everything looks fine. We had good quality. We had some good join. All right, and then we can click on details, which will then go into explaining even more information about that individual user, what they came from, what type of connection they were using then. So maybe that one user is having a bad connection. You can look, maybe they're using wireless instead of being actually plugged into their local device there for a better connectivity. Locations that they were coming from. But all this is based off the detail side if you did want to get more into it. And of course, you can export that if you wanted to represent that to somebody. But that is the brief overview of what the troubleshooting and analytics portion looks like. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. It's been a pleasure speaking with everybody, and have a great day. Thank you. Goodbye.